My grandfather's funeral ended in silence, not the respectful kind but the cold, unfinished kind. No eulogies. No stories. Just my mother adjusting her sunglasses and whispering, "About time," before walking away from the casket like it owed her money. Back at the house she started tossing things. Photos, medals, letters, all into garbage bags. That's when I saw it. Wedged between two old cookbooks in a drawer no one had bothered to open in years. A slim black booklet, worn at the edges, labeled simply, "Savings." I opened it, and my hands started to shake. Rows and rows of entries, spanning decades. Numbers carefully written, deposits, withdrawals, transfers. Then near the end, a final balance that made my chest tighten. 6 figures. I barely whispered, "What is this?" My mother looked over, saw what I was holding and ripped it from my hands. "You should have buried that with him," she snapped. "It's nothing. Probably expired. Let it go." Then she tossed it into the trash. And just like that, she moved on. I didn't say a word. I waited until she went outside to take a call. Then I pulled the booklet out of the trash, wiped it clean and slipped it into my jacket pocket. That night I didn't sleep. The next morning I walked into the bank listed on the front page. Quiet. Alone. No lawyer. No plan. Just the booklet. The manager asked me to wait, then took it to the back. 5 minutes later he returned, pale, and leaned in. "You need to stay right here," he whispered. "We're calling the police. Don't leave." I blinked. "What? Why?" "Because this isn't just savings," he said. "It's fraud. And your name's not the only one in this ledger." I sat stiff in the chair across from the manager's desk, staring at the phone in his hand as he whispered into it. The words I could make out made my stomach twist. "Yes. Account number matches. Yes. We have the original booklet. Yes. He brought it in himself." He hung up slowly, turned toward me and locked the door to his office. From the drawer he pulled out a printed folder, thick, overstuffed, and stamped with a red stripe labeled "Internal Hold." Then he asked one question. "Do you know who was managing this account before your grandfather passed?" I shook my head. No. I didn't even know it existed. He opened the folder and flipped through until he found a photocopy of a withdrawal slip. The name on it wasn't mine. It wasn't even my grandfather's. It was my mother's. Multiple withdrawals. Small at first. $200 here. $500 there. Then larger. Thousands. All signed, all initialed, and all done without power of attorney. "She's not listed anywhere on the account," he said, his voice low. "These are unauthorized. If we audit this, it's going to be a mess. A legal mess." I asked him how far back it went. He hesitated, then said, 12 years. I stared at the file. 12 years. Of stealing. Of erasing. Of pretending. And then I realized, this wasn't just about money. This was about what my grandfather knew, and what he kept quiet. Until now. The police arrived 15 minutes later. And suddenly I wasn't a grieving grandson anymore. I was the only living witness to a financial crime that had been buried just like him. The police took the booklet, the file, and my statement. I gave it all, every detail I knew, which wasn't much. But then I remembered something. A voicemail. It was from my grandfather. 2 weeks before he passed. At the time I'd written it off as rambling. But now it played in a different light. "Son, make sure no one touches that drawer in the kitchen. Don't trust people just because they raised you. Some debts stay hidden in blood." I had chills. One of the officers leaned in and asked, "Can we see the drawer?" I drove them back to the house. My mother was still there, sitting on the back porch, wine in hand like it was just another Wednesday. When she saw the 2 detectives step out of my car, her expression collapsed into something I'd never seen on her face before. Fear. "What's this?" she asked, rising too fast. "Did something happen? Did you lose something?" I didn't respond. I just walked straight to the drawer. Inside. A folded envelope. Unopened. My name on it. The officer opened it in front of me. It was a notarized document. Dated 2 months prior. A legal addendum to the account. Granting me full access upon my grandfather's death. The officer turned to my mother and asked, "Did you know this existed?" She stammered. I thought it was void." He was confused near the end. He didn't know what he was doing. The officer raised an eyebrow. "He knew enough to sign this. And enough to lock it away from you." Her face turned sheet white. And I realized, this wasn't just financial. This was personal. He knew what she'd done. My mother sat in the dining room like a statue. No more wine. No more questions. Just silence, the kind that leaks guilt. The officers spread the papers across the table. Each page carried the same signature, hers. But it wasn't just the withdrawals now. It was insurance forms, healthcare documents, even a forged letter claiming medical authority over my grandfather's treatment in his final months. One officer turned to her and asked plainly, "Do you understand what power of attorney is, ma'am?" She nodded slowly. "And do you have documentation proving you had it?" Silence. I watched as her hands trembled. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a gray area. She had stolen not just from an old man, but from a man she called father. Systematically. Quietly. For over a decade. The officer tapped one final document, a safety deposit record. "Did you access this box?" he asked. She blinked. "No. I didn't even know it existed." But I had. It was listed in the savings book, one final note scrawled in my grandfather's handwriting. Box 211. Truth sealed in metal. With the warrant signed, we opened it the next morning. Inside were three things. A USB stick. A stack of handwritten letters. A photo of me, age 10, standing beside my grandfather with a note. "This one doesn't lie." The USB held scanned bank logs and audio recordings. Recordings of my mother talking to bank staff, pushing fake stories, making threats, laughing. And then a final voice memo. "If you're hearing this, son, they finally buried me. But some debts don't stay buried long." My hands tightened. It wasn't over yet. The handwritten letters were old, some dated back 15 years. Each sealed with a small red wax stamp in my grandfather's usual style. Every one addressed to someone specific. His doctor. His accountant. Even the bank manager. But two were addressed to me. I opened the first one slowly. Inside, his handwriting was neat but urgent. "I know she's been stealing from me, son. I've watched it for years. But I didn't want to die with bitterness. I wanted to believe she'd stop. I wanted to believe blood meant something. But in the end, she didn't even visit when I fell. That told me everything. If you're reading this, it means she tried to bury the truth. And if you're brave enough to keep going, take the second letter to the man I trust most." I opened the second letter. It was brief. Just a name, a number, and a line. He kept the other half of the story. That night I called the number. The man's voice was gravel when he picked up. "You must be Ray's grandson," he said before I even introduced myself. He invited me to meet the next morning. Said he had something I should see. What he handed me was a flash drive and a locked folder of legal documents. Inside, a signed affidavit. A power of attorney transfer dated 4 months before my grandfather's fall, legally revoking all financial control from my mother. Not only that, but it showed she had attempted to sell the house behind his back. And the buyer? Her boyfriend. The man she had introduced as just a friend from the gym. This wasn't just theft. This was betrayal wrapped in family ties. His name was Vince Turner. Real estate investor on paper. On weekends, my mother's friend from the gym. But the documents told a deeper story. Vince wasn't just a casual fling, he was the co-author of every fake signature, every silent transfer, every house inspection disguised as just curious. The contract was days away from closing. My childhood home, the one my grandfather had built himself, was about to be sold at a laughable price. Half its worth. Because Vince was listed as a longtime family caretaker, the sale had qualified for an obscure tax break. And I saw it, the signature. Faked. My grandfather's name shakily scrawled. Backdated to 2 months before his death. A month after the stroke that left him unable to write. I took the documents straight to the police. They added forgery to the growing list of charges. Meanwhile, word spread fast through town. My mother's name showed up on neighborhood forums. Vince's business was flooded with one-star reviews, angry calls, questions. But she wasn't ready to fold. That night, she showed up at my apartment. Red-eyed. Makeup smudged. "No wine this time." "You're destroying me," she whispered. "You have no idea what I've been through." I didn't raise my voice. Didn't slam the door. Just stared and said, "You already destroyed what mattered. I'm just showing the ashes." She left in silence. But the next morning I received a text from a lawyer. A new name. "Your grandfather's estate executor has something to show you. Something he left only for you." And suddenly I realized, my grandfather never stopped protecting me, even after death. The estate attorney's office smelled of dust, old wood, and secrets. He was a quiet man in his 60s, glasses slipping down his nose as he handed me a leather envelope. "Your grandfather left this with us 10 months ago. Seal. Notarized. Instructions, only give to my grandson, and only if the truth comes out. My hands were cold as I broke the seal. Inside, a handwritten will. A second one, dated 6 months after the official version my mother had filed. This one changed everything. She was removed as a beneficiary. Vince's name was never mentioned. The house, left entirely to me. The account, fully in my name. And a handwritten note at the bottom. If she's reading this, she already knows what she did. If you are reading this, it means you found the courage I couldn't. The attorney added, this version is signed, witnessed, and legally binding. She must have submitted the older version before we could update probate. I felt my chest tighten. Not with grief, but with a sharp, unfamiliar feeling, clarity. I didn't need to scream. Didn't need revenge. All I had to do was file this version. And so I did. Within 72 hours, the court issued an injunction. Sale of the house? Frozen. My mother's claim? Voided. Her lawyer? Gone. She called me 10 times in one night. No voicemail. Just desperate ringing. When I didn't answer, she texted me. He promised me everything. You stole it. And I finally replied. No, Mom. I just read what he actually wrote. The ashes she tried to bury him in now scattered her perfect image. The court ruled swiftly. My grandfather's second will, the one she tried to bury, overrode everything. Probate closed in my favor. The account was transferred, the house title reissued. Her appeal was denied within days. He vanished. His business shuttered. Rumors whispered of unpaid debts, lawsuits, an offshore account frozen mid-transfer. And my mother? She tried to play victim. Publicly wept at church. Told neighbors I had turned on her for inheritance blood money. But people had already seen the filings. The signatures. The forged sale attempt. The recordings. Sympathy evaporated. She moved in with her sister across state lines where no one knew her name. One afternoon I returned to my grandfather's house, now mine, and walked through each room in silence. I touched the door frames he built by hand. Opened the drawer he'd warned me about. Looked out at the yard where he taught me how to tie knots, fix fences, trust instincts. In the study I found one final envelope taped beneath the desk. Inside was a single sentence typed. The hardest part of telling the truth is knowing it'll hurt the ones who lie. I didn't cry. I just stood still. Knowing he had spent years preparing for the day I would finally understand who he had raised me to be. Not obedient. Not silent. But principled. The kind of man who lets the truth speak louder than vengeance. I didn't expose her. I didn't destroy her. I didn't need to. She had done that on her own, slowly, greedily, completely. And all I did was hold up a mirror. She looked in, and ran.